Mark Lawwell was appointed as Celtic's head of first team scouting and recruitment in May 2022. The son of former CEO and current club chairman Peter, the appointment was immediately met with calls of nepotism, but the club were quick to claim that giving the job to Mark was the idea of then manager Ange Postecoglou. Since then, Celtic have gone on to make 19 first team signings, and in this video we're going to rate all 19 of those signings out of 10. Number 1, Benjamin Siegrist. The Swiss goalkeeper was signed on a free transfer from Dundee United, with several other clubs interested at the time. In 18 months since, he struggled to make a handful of appearances, failed to impress even the rare times he did play, and is no longer even guaranteed a place on the bench. 2 out of 10, as he simply hasn't appeared enough to judge any differently. Number 2, Alexandro Bernabe. Celtic's first ever Argentinian signing, Bernabe came from South America for a fee of $3.75 million and was expected to make the left-back slot his own ahead of Greg Taylor. Instead, he's failed to make any real positive impact and has been unable to keep Taylor out of the team. Drunk driving issues may have affected his arrival, but nothing since has shown he's even on the level of Taylor, who himself hasn't been particularly impressive this year. Another 2 out of 10. Number 3, Mortz. German centre-back was signed on loan from the French League and looked decent if unspectacular in the first half of last season, and gave a decent account of himself in the Champions League. Celtic agreed to terminate his loan halfway through the season, but this was more due to a lack of regular playing time and a reluctance to make his transfer permanent. Overall, a decent player, gets a 6 out of 10. Number 4, Aaron Mooy. The first true success story of the video, Mooy was signed on a free transfer in the summer of 2022. In truth, probably more of an Ange signing than anything else. Though he'd spent the previous 2 seasons playing in the Chinese League, Mooy came with a good pedigree, impressive in the Premier League and at the World Cup for Australia in years prior. Even in his prime, Mooy was never the fastest of players, so over the age of 30 by the time he moved to Glasgow, the central midfielder was incredibly slow, but he had fantastic technique and vision, ranking up plenty of assists and a few goals during his season at Parkhead. Decided to retire at the end of that year, however, due to ongoing back injuries, but will be remembered fondly. 7 out of 10. Number 5, Said Haksabanovic. The Montenegrin winger arrived still aged just 23, but he'd already bounced around numerous clubs during his career, including the likes of West Ham, Malaga and Rubin Kazan. Celtic were able to land him due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, and he certainly showed glimpses of being a talented creative player. However, it's apparent he lacks the pace to really make it at the top level. Spending this season on loan at Stoke, it seems unlikely he'll be able to come back and make another go of it at Celtic. 5 out of 10. Number 6, Oliver Abogard. A signing it's easy to forget ever happened. The Danish midfielder only made 9 appearances for Celtic in what was a temporary contract that was another one due to the political situation in Russia. A waste of time for everyone really. 2 out of 10. Number 7, Yuki Kobayashi. Celtic had a lot of success in the Asian market early on under Ange Postecoglou with the signings of Thiago, Hatate and Aada. It doesn't look like Kobayashi will be adding to that list of success. The Japanese centre-back has struggled for game time and is another one who's failed to do anything memorable or impressive in the little time he has had on the pitch. 2 out of 10. Number 8, Alistair Johnston. The Canadian right-back impressed for his nation in the 2022 World Cup and hit the ground running when he arrived at Celtic in the January 23 window. Johnson has been a popular signing with most fans and at first even looked a possible upgrade on Josip Juranovic, the man he was replacing. This season, Johnson hasn't quite hit the same form, possibly due to a long-term injury suffered in the final weeks of the last season. It's still overall a positive signing at £3 million from Montreal, 7 out of 10. Number 9, Tomoki Iwata. A man it's hard to fully judge, Iwata arrived at Celtic as the J-League Player of the Season. The Japanese international is primarily a defensive midfielder, a role Celtic don't put much emphasis on domestically, but always play Callum McGregor in during European games. Though he hasn't had much game time, Iwata has generally looked impressive when he does get a chance, and though he was somewhat written off early on under Brendan Rodgers, it looks like there could be a lot more to come. There's a player in there if Rodgers can figure out how to use him. 5 out of 10 for now. Number 10, O. There was a time in the Celtic support where there was debate over who was the best striker at the club, Thiago or Georgios Giakoumakis. Thiago clearly ended that debate in most fans' minds during his sensational 22-23 campaign, halfway through which Giakoumakis left for MLS side Atlanta United. O was signed as the Greek striker's replacement, but he's far from the finished article. O has plenty of potential and an impressive goals to minutes ratio, but hasn't shown enough to spark a debate over Kyogo's starting position. He's young and it feels like his best days are still ahead of him, so far 6 out of 10. Number 11, Uden Thiago home. The 20-year-old Norwegian midfielder arrived for £2 million in the summer and has been touted and scouted for years as a wonder kid with potential, but perhaps missing something to make it at the top level. With plenty of competition for a signing, Celtic may have landed a coup by getting the deal done, but his appearances have been scattered so far, and so have his performances. He was unlucky to receive a red card in Celtic's Champions League game against Feyenoord, and also suffered a minor injury, so he's yet to fully settle. There's definitely potential there, but it remains to be seen if he can live up to it. 4 out of 10 for now. Number 12, Marco Tilio. There's nothing to go on yet. The Australian winger is a player Celtic have scouted for several years, but who has only managed a handful of minutes since his arrival. Rogers has said Tilio has a long way to go to be ready for the first team, so it might be best to get him out on loan for now. Has to be a 0 out of 10 so far to match his contribution to the club. Number 13, Yong. Unlike some other summer arrivals, Yong has received a fair amount of game time since joining the club. There was 1 or 2 decent showings, but he has generally looked awful so far. Miles below the standard needed for the Champions League, questionably even good enough for domestic matters, Yong has it all to do to win over the fans. Atrocious goal and assists return for a winger in his native South Korea, Yong has carried that lack of end product over to Scotland with him so far. 1 out of 10. Number 14, Quan. Shaping up to be one of the most pointless signings in Celtic history, the midfielder was brought in from the 2nd division of South Korean football, and then his friendly appearance against Bilbao looked like he'd struggle in the 2nd division of Scottish football. Potential to be an all-time dreadful signing, has to be a 0 out of 10 so far. Number 15, Mike Naraki. Another tough one to judge. The Polish centre-back looked to be a first-team ready arrival and started the first few games of the season looking decent along the way. Injury then kept him out of the team for a prolonged period, and since returning from injury, he's shown nothing in training according to Brendan Rodgers to deserve to take the place of Liam Scales in the starting 11. Another one who seems to have potential and may well turn out to be a good player, but he's on shaky ground at the moment. 5 out of 10. Number 16, Gustaf Aal. Another centre-back signed in the summer, the Swede cost £3 million from Elfsborg. His most memorable moment to date was seemingly being caught out badly and conceding a goal at Ibrox, but thankfully this was rightfully ruled out for a foul on the Swedish defender. Still, doubts remained following his performance against Rangers, and despite earning a call-up and cap for his national team, he's been permanently out of the starting 11 since, and even dropped down to the B team. May turn good, but equally could be a player who just drifts off. 3 out of 10. Number 17, Leis Palma. The only summer signing who's made a positive impact so far, Palma arrived with the near impossible task of replacing major fan favourite Aada when the Portuguese winger departed for the Saudi League. After a bit of a rough start, Palma started to find form, and though lacking pace, clearly has bags of skill and technique, racking up some impressive goals and assists along the way. Hopefully kicks on from here and really makes a name for himself because he has shown the ability. 7 out of 10. Number 18, Nat Phillips. The English defender was only signed on loan from Liverpool as the result of an injury crisis in his position, so was only ever planned to be a short-term measure. Ironically turned up and got immediately injured and missed what would have been some guaranteed starts. He hasn't looked too sharp when he has played, but he's not made any massive blunders either. 3 out of 10. And number 19, Paulo Bernardo. The highly rated Portuguese youngster joined on loan from Benfica and has had a big reputation as a wonder kid for any regular Football Manager players over the past few years. Looks a tidy and good technical player so far, though not impressed to the level where there's any major clamour for his loan deal to be made permanent. Has talent and certainly not been a flop, but not the roaring success of fellow countryman Aada, who joined in similar circumstances. Oddly dropped domestically but trusted in the Champions League, where he has looked alright, so 5 out of 10. 19 signings, and you have to say so far, incredibly unimpressive stuff overall. Mark Lawwell has one of the most important roles at Celtic and hasn't yet shown he's the man for the job. We have a huge transfer window coming up in January, and if it's anything like the summer window, questions will start to intensify. The son of the chairman, however, will even another performance as woeful as the summer window put any pressure on him. His surname alone means he may be in this job for years to come, so we need to hope Mark Lawwell can turn things around at Celtic.